Trump exposes the sham surrounding the Cuban dictator's daughter. At the moment when Mariela Castro appears to live surrounded by luxury, privilege, and state protection, while the Cuban people continue to be crushed by blackouts, lack of food, scarce medicine, and miserable wages. On Wednesday, May 27, 2026, the pressure from the United States against the old communist leadership becomes tangible within the family itself. Castro, the daughter of Raul Castro, who for years was portrayed as a symbol of equality, social rights, and modernity, now appears linked to a high-end property in Atabay, an upscale area of Havana, with a 20-meter pool, 6 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, fine wood, expanded grounds, and security linked to the state. That's where the propaganda starts to bleed, because the same elite that asks the people for sacrifice lives shielded from the chaos they created. Trump and Rubio put food and medicine on the table as a proposal for direct aid, but they demand that this aid does not go through the hands of the regime, and this hits exactly the dictatorship's weak spot, the control of hunger, dependence, and the narrative. The heiress to power living in comfort, while millions of Cubans stand in line and face darkness and abandonment. What does this house reveal about the Castro family? Why does the regime fear aid outside of its control? How did Trump expose the misery that the dictatorship tries to hide? I'll tell you all about it in a moment. If you like this kind of straightforward, no-nonsense content, consider subscribing, because here we have videos like this every day. Mariela Castro is not just any figure within the regime. She is the director of the Cuban National Center for Sexual Education. She is internationally known for using the LGBT agenda as a political showcase for the government. For years, she appeared as the modern, progressive, and supposedly sensitive face of the dictatorship. But now, what is coming to light shatters this carefully crafted image that was sold outside the island. The discourse of rights, equality, and social justice clashes with the residents identified by investigators and the independent Cuban press as a high-end complex in Atabay, near El Laguito, an area historically linked to the power elite in Havana. Recent reports indicate that the property attributed to Mariela consists of 3 lots, 6 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, a 20-meter pool, fine wood, and a state security setup. The Trump administration increased pressure against Raul Castro, while Marco Rubio, the United States Secretary of State, spoke directly to the Cuban people and offered $100 million in food and medicine, as long as the delivery was made by trustworthy entities, such as the Catholic Church or charity organizations, and not through the regime. Rubio also accused the Cuban leadership of corruption and looting, saying that the lack of electricity, fuel, and food is not only caused by external factors, but by a structure that accumulated power while the people sank into need. That's when the farce starts to fall apart even more. The regime tries to sell the idea that all Cuban suffering comes from outside, that it's always the fault of the United States, that the population needs to accept more sacrifices in the name of the revolution. But when images and descriptions emerge of an elite house linked to Raul Castro's daughter, with a long swimming pool, spacious areas, integrated grounds, special wood, and permanent security, the narrative loses strength in the face of reality. The average Cuban faces lines, blackouts, and hunger, and a lack of medicine. The elite connected to the Castro surname appear protected, well-supplied, and far removed from the daily collapse. The residence attributed to Mariela Castro has been described in reports as a residential complex that is not limited to an ordinary house. The place is said to have been expanded with neighboring plots, forming a larger area for a small family. The investigation cited by the Cuban press in exile also mentions custom woodwork made with precious wood, including Mara cedar imported from the Brazilian Amazon and mahogany brought from Santiago de Cuba. These details are not just decoration, they reveal what is being prioritized. While Cuban hospitals suffer from a lack of supplies, while families improvise to get food, the revolutionary elite preserves a standard of living that seems to belong to another island. The 20-meter pool became a direct symbol of this distance. It's the image of a political class that asks the people for patience while living without experiencing the hardship they impose on others. According to the information released, the structure was supposedly built for training. In Cuba, where many citizens can't keep basic food at home or buy necessary medication, this detail matters because it shows the gap between the official discourse and the real life of the family at the top of the regime. The security apparatus also draws attention. The circulating material confirms that the surveillance is linked to the Cuban Ministry of the Interior, with civilian guards and agent shifts at set times. This reveals more than just private security. It shows the use of the state apparatus to protect the privacy and comfort of those who belong to the top leadership. The same state that controls the population, represses opponents, and monitors dissidents also protects the peace of mind of the heirs to power. For the average Cuban, the state appears as an inspector, a bill collector, and a watchdog. For the elite, it appears as a shield. Are those who talk about social justice willing to share their own abundance with Cubans who are without food, medicine, and hope? The Cuban crisis is not an abstraction. Recent reports show the lack of basic medicines, even for common treatments, pushing citizens toward black market pharmacies and other informal ways to buy medicine. A Cuban patient, interviewed by FOLA, reported that the cost of medication for high blood pressure could consume a large part of their income. This is the kind of suffering that doesn't appear in the regime's celebratory speeches. This is the real Cuba, where survival depends on connections, improvisation, remittances from abroad, or the black market. The political move by Trump and Rubio is precisely to take the discussion out of the realm of propaganda and bring it to the Cuban citizen's pocketbook, dinner table, and home. Washington offers help in food and medicine, but demands that the regime does not control the distribution. This condition strikes at the heart of Castro's power because the dictatorship does not survive on ideological discourse alone. It survives by controlling what comes in, who receives it, who gives thanks, and who becomes dependent. When the United States says that aid needs to arrive through reliable channels, they expose the regime's fear of losing its monopoly on need. The lifestyle attributed to Mariela Castro in Atabey also affects the international image she has built. For years, Mariela was known as an advocate of social causes, especially those related to the LGBT community. But critics of the regime accuse this showcase of serving more as external propaganda than as real freedom within the island. The contradiction becomes even stronger when the person who speaks about human rights does not confront the lack of political freedom, does not address the imprisonment of opponents, and does not break with the family structure that has dominated Cuba for decades. The social agenda becomes a shield, luxury becomes proof. The misery of the people becomes silence. The case also exposes the new phase of American pressure on Cuba. Trump is not only targeting the official discourse. He targets the legitimacy of the family that still supports the regime from within. Raul Castro has left the presidency. But he remains a symbol of power, control, and continuity. It's not just a house. It's a political snapshot of how the revolution promised equality and delivered a red aristocracy. The family at the top gets land, a pool, security, travel, and a passport. The people are left with the party line, rationing, surveillance, and blame shifted onto others. Because while the leadership demands loyalty, the image that remains is of a protected elite living far too well on an island where millions continue to pay the price of the dictatorship. I'm Milson Alves, an international affairs specialist, and my purpose is to keep you well informed with the truth every day. The news links are in the video description. Like this video, subscribe, and check the comments at the end to engage more with the Milson Alves community.